Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jeff, and I got Chad again, and we just finished up with Mastery Chat tonight, and it was fantastic. Or in the words of Tiffany, it was awesome. Really engaging, lots of great answers and conversations going on and on. Hosted by Chad Ostrowski tonight, all about increasing student ownership. So, Chad, how are you feeling right now? You're laughing right now.
I'm feeling great. I love how you said, in the words of Tiffany, it was awesome. Like that's Tiffany's phrase. I just thought that was really funny.
It is. When we talk on Masteries Live, that's what she says, man.
She was actually the first person to use the word awesome. I'm sorry, that was just hilarious. I don't know why.
And Tiffany's words in the context of Facebook Live.
Yeah, I get it.
Chats.
Oh, I understand. It just sounded funny in my head, so I started laughing. No, that was an amazing chat. I could barely keep up with it. I am, as some people know, I'm not the quickest tweeter. But it was definitely keeping me on my toes. There was tons of amazing perspectives. There was tons of amazing responses, ideas, tools, things to think about, which is what we want from a good mastery chat. So I was glad that at least by my own self-evaluation that was able to be provided.
We didn't steal your word, Tiff. We gave you full credit, 100% credit for the word.
I'm pretty sure the end of all my emails say "stay awesome," but I'm just saying.
That's true too, but like that is really true. So I think actually they've stolen that. That's a whole other discussion. So, any like favorite or really awesome responses to anything popping in your head right now? I have a few that I screenshotted, but if there's something that's coming in your head,
there were some really cool things I enjoyed. One of them being there was one about having students do evaluations. That really stuck out to me. That was a really cool piece of ownership. And another thing I noticed, not necessarily a single tweet or event, but it was the fact that people viewed student ownership of different aspects of their classroom. Like a lot of people were focused on different areas. Like some were really focused on students creating the environment, right? Others focused more on creating the rules together as a class, both of which are great ideas, right? But like teachers think in different ways. Others focused on assessment. Like so students like self-assessing, that's what I always like to be really careful on, by the way, with self-assessment, because it's a really cool practice, but if done incorrectly it can be really dangerous, right? Because then you're assessing for mastery or having students self-assess for mastery ineffectively as opposed to effectively, and you can kind of get some false positives and maybe think your students know more than they do. But when it's done correctly in the right context, like it can be an amazing tool and increase ownership. And then other people gave them more choice in personalization of the learning. So what I thought was neat is the different perspectives of what student ownership is and how they provide student ownership in their classrooms. And the cool part about that is that it gave every teacher in that chat another perspective to take back into their classroom. So if I'm focused on student ownership just on assessment or self-assessing, maybe I think about how I set up my classroom or how I set up my structure and routines being more student-led and more student-owned. So very cool things. Kristen Nan, awesome to see her joining us.
Speaking of different perspective, I screenshotted I always do this when I'm screenshotting some of the tweets that I like. I do fewer and fewer screenshots as the night goes on because I just
that's how I
involved in it. I'm like, I kind of stopped after like 4. But I did have quite a few so question number 1 was, what does student ownership mean to you? So I grabbed a few of those. So Anastasia Armstreet, which is Armstreet's
she had some great responses.
Class. Yeah, she had some great ones today. Her first one was putting my need to control to the side and letting students make decisions regarding their learning process. Learning preferences, which I like, is a lot of what we talk about. It's sort of like letting go and shifting, your need to control things or your belief that you're supposed to control everything to the side and giving them some choice there. So another one that we had was, let's see here, Poe Refit, which is at MKPO.
She has some awesome responses as well.
Yeah, she always does. She said, student ownership means my students invested in what they are learning. They lead their learning, and I provide support, knowledge, and facilitation on demand, which I like. I like to focus on what she provides. Like her role in the classroom is what we always talk about, right? Her role in the classroom, she's facilitating, she's supporting them, she's providing them what they need when they need it, not assuming that she needs to do everything. So really cool there.
I actually responded to that exact statement. It's funny that you brought that one up because I loved her focus on it's the students' investment in their own learning.
Yeah.
And because and we talk about this at length all the time, but giving students a purpose to invest in their learning is like the first step of any of this, right? So we can't expect students to make a bad investment if the experience isn't worth that investment, right? So if we think about this, when you go to an investor or you go to a bank and you want money, like they're not going to give it to you if you're a bad investment. So like, why would a student invest their mental, their cognitive, their energy capital into you or your classroom or your instruction or your curriculum if there's not any value there for them? And one way to increase that value is to show them how they can connect to that and what value it has for them. And that's really hard to do. That's really hard to do if you're the one holding all those cards, right? That's really hard to do is for you to say, I'm the teacher. I have all the information. I'm going to disseminate it as I decide, and you are going to like it. So like any teacher that thinks that a student should be engaged because they said so is going to be very mistaken and not have a good day. Luckily, I think most of our Teach Better Nation and Mastery Chat audience isn't in that category based on the chat tonight. But I think it's worth noting, right, that I think that you have to earn that student's investment, whether it's through building a relationship, whether it's through engaging them with a Teach Further unit or a community connection, whether it's allowing them to work at their own pace or overcome barriers with UDL, whether it's allowing them to reassess so the fear of failure gets removed. Like all of these things are to the same goal, is that increasing the value of that instruction and the value of that experience for the students so that they're willing to invest their mental capital into you as a teacher and into that class and into that topic so that learning that information means something to them. Because if it doesn't, you're wasting everyone's time at that point. So I really went off on a tangent with the investment thing, but I thought that was a really really cool thing.
Enjoyed Stella, our good friend Stella Pollard, who's at Stella_Pollard. She's just simply said student ownership equals student empowerment. I really enjoyed that. Oh, look, Tiffany Ott, I screenshotted hers. Student ownership to me is about helping students see their learning as something they own, something they influence, something they are an active participant in. They are not body sitting, and they are active thinkers and doers. Love it.
Yeah, and that's huge, right? I mean, if you think about like those difficult students, if they feel like school is doing bad things to them, they're always going to fight back. Like if you think of like the worst student or the quote unquote worst student in a class, or the challenging student, or the ones that end up getting written off, right? These students may have not ever felt successful in their entire academic career. They may have always failed. They may have always not done well. And I've literally had conversations with students in my own classrooms that feel like school does things to them. They feel like school is a bad place that does bad things to them because they have a negative experience. So giving them more control and removing some of those barriers, removing some of that fear with ownership can be a way to reverse that process, right? Because when you articulate that to a student and when you say, well, you have all the power, you have all the control, like that perspective starts to change. And I'm not saying that's going to happen overnight, but if you have a more student-centered classroom, if you have a more student-focused and owned classroom, those things are much less likely to occur. So that same student that thinks school does things to them now has more power. So then you can have the conversation of, so what can we do to change this? Like, what can we do collectively? Because this is our space or your learning. And it's a whole different conversation. That's another tweet that I want to mention since we're talking about tweets. Someone had mentioned so that this is your classroom, not mine. Like that's how they talk to their students. And you hear me talk about this a lot of like teacher language and why it's important. Well, like teacher language towards students is also important too. So if you welcome students into your room and they feel like they own an environment, they're more likely to respect that environment, right? Like and that's universally true regardless. It's the same thing with employees at a business. If they feel like they have a stake in the quality of what's going on there, like they're going to be more likely to keep it clean and make it look nice, versus if they don't care and they have no stake in it. It's the exact same principle, right? So it's about, and which is, once again, I'm going to come back to my giant tangent that I'm still going on. Apparently, it's like, is your classroom? Because I'm just going to write a blog about this after this, I think. But like, is your classroom? Write this down. Give me a task or something. Is your classroom worth the investment of your students' time and effort? Like, is it?
Yeah.
Like, and if it's not, like, make it worth their time and figure out what you need to do. Because I think that's like a huge idea, right? If we view our students' attention and their effort and their passion and their dedication and their ability to overcome failure, if we view all of that as student capital, all of that is the capital that our students can provide to us. We have to earn that. We have to give them enough value, enough of a positive experience, enough ownership to want to invest that in us as educators, to our environment, in our classrooms, and into our curriculum and learning opportunities that we're providing them. Because and if we're not doing a good enough job, like, we have to figure out, how do we sell them on that? I mean, it becomes a fairly simple transaction at that point. So I don't know. I just got off on this weird tangent. I like it.
So let me throw another one at you. This is Michelle Taliento, which is Taliento Teaches, at Taliento Teaches. She says, I've always said that my favorite moments in teaching are the moments where I'm just a fly on the wall. Routines are so habitual and norms are established, and the students can identify what needs to be done on their own. And that made me think about a lot of the different classrooms that we walk into that are running smoothly and running the system right. And we sit back with the teacher and but we're all just flies on the wall, and we're just watching these students go and being engaged. And so I really enjoyed that tweet. So question 2 was, what was question 2? Question 2 was, how do you build and provide student ownership in your classroom? Let's hear examples. Jared Weiss, which is great Wise one. It must be Wise one, WEISS. So great Wise one said, I don't require specific ways to show understanding or mastery. For example, everyone must do a report. Like, he doesn't do that. I want students to determine what they want to learn, how they want to learn, and the way they will show their mastery. And that made me think a lot about, we talk a lot about when we're talking about focus on what they're supposed to be learning, not the way in which you think that they should show you. So, like, if I'm learning something about these, scientific method or something of that nature, like, if I don't write it perfectly, that's not what you were assessing me on, right? What you're assessing me on is, do I know what that is? So can I draw it out for you? Can I explain it to you? Can I show you it another way? We can worry about my writing ability when I'm focused on writing, when you right, or with my language teacher or whatever that might be. But right now, you're assessing me on, the science term or whatever it is. Like, can I show you in a different way? And I love that Jared says he gives them the option and a lot of ownership there. Oh, and then, of course, our good friend Kristen Nan, the amazing Kristen Nan, she says you must build it together. Conversation to set goals and plan to obtain them. Empower your students with access to their learning. They must know where they are at in order to know where they are going. And I know
I actually just
Kristen does a lot of planning, a lot of work with her students on how, like, everything works in their classroom. It's really cool.
I actually just had this conversation. I was working with some teachers on specifically classroom management. And one of the things that I was talking to them about is, like, you always have those moments in class when things aren't going well or something's wrong, or you have that, like, before Christmas break feeling, but it's not before Christmas break. And you just don't, right? And like, just things aren't going well. Like, they're not following the routines. They've fallen off the wagon in terms of behavior. Like, you don't feel like you have as much control. They aren't gelling like they were. And, like, that's okay for a day, but once you notice it's happening 3 or 4 days in a row and you're like, what's going on? Like, something I always recommend is sort of like a classroom powwow. And that's a really kind of, like, fluffy term, I guess. It doesn't have to be that, but just sort of like hey guys, I've noticed these things, and I want to know what's going on. and just like having a legitimate discussion about, is what I'm doing not working for you? Is what, are you purposefully trying to disrespect me or not? Or no, you know what I mean? Like having these real conversations, and even someone else in the Twitter chat said, like, just acknowledging that they're human too. And then not just these things that have to listen and follow directions, but acknowledging that like their opinion matters. It doesn't mean you have to bend to every whim they have, of course not. But it doesn't mean you can't listen fully and then respond respectfully in the same way. A lot of times we end up shooting students down really quick, and we assume that they just want to be lazy, or they want to do less work, or they don't want to learn because they just want to sit and do X, Y, and Z all day, or what have you. And the truth from my own experience is that most students want to learn. Children, when they're born, innately have the ability to learn everything they need to, like without a lot of help. And we kind of squash that as they enter schools. And so I guess my challenge to educators would be like, don't be afraid to just listen to your students, because everything they do, this is something we've talked to with Dave Burgess about, and we talked to at every single workshop about, and that is like, every single thing a student does is data for you. Mm-hmm. Every single thing a student does is data. So if they're disengaged and not listening, what variables can you change to make that a better experience?
What's that
because what is that telling you? Because it's really easy for us to go like, well, I wanted you to do this and you didn't do that. Yeah. So therefore you're wrong. As opposed to going, hey, this didn't go well. I don't feel like you were engaged or thought this experience was valuable. What could we have done to make it more valuable for you? Mm-hmm. And it's like a whole different way of looking at the experience.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for chiming in, Jen.
Yeah.
So assuming students don't want to learn is a sure way to communicate that they shouldn't want to learn. Oh, that's spot on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you assume it, like, that's spot on. That's like speaking like Chad's words almost precisely to him.
Yeah, and I've never thought of it. I guess I've never taken it that next step, which I love that she did, was that if you go, they don't want to learn, you're literally admitting that you have nothing to offer them. Mm-hmm. Like that you can't, as a professional educator, access their interests or access their effort or passions or genius, like I love that. That's like, Jen, you get a good star.
I've said it before where if you say, I'm trying to think of how I said it, if you say these kids this student or these kids will just never get it, what you're really saying is, I can't get them to get it. I'm not good enough to get them to get it. And you have to have that expectation. We talk a lot about like Tiffany says right there, expectation matters. It's not just on the expectation that they can learn, but also the expectation that I am good enough and I know what I'm like, and I'm caring enough. I'm going to do enough to help them get it, and we're going to get it together and stuff. And there's an expectation. I have to expect better for both my students and for me as a teacher, right? And go forward with that. So love it. Thanks for chiming in, Jen. That's awesome.
And there's a challenge there of like, it's okay to be vulnerable as a teacher. Because a lot of times we aren't willing to do that. A lot of times we aren't willing to say like, hey, I had a crappy idea and it didn't work at all. Yeah. How can we make it better next time? And there have literally been times, like I actually had a moment in my class. This is like way before the grid method and everything else. But like there was a moment I remember early on in my teaching career where I think I was just like lecturing over some notes or something, right? Like something just fairly mundane, fairly traditional. And I looked out into my class and I literally noticed that like I'm at like a 30% interest rate, right? Like half of my class is glazed over. They're not misbehaving, but they're just like, no one's home. And I literally remember I stopped myself and I was like, hey guys, what's going on? And they're like, dude, bored. Like you've been talking for 30 minutes. Like what is going on? And it was like this weird moment where I said, oh, you know what? Like you're absolutely right. I thought we had too much information to cover. Me covering that information in 30 or 40 minutes or whatever that time was.
Yeah. Ooh. Froze up on me.
Listening to what so
Chad, are you still there, bud?
I'm not really sure.
You're freezing up a little there. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was just on me or if everyone was seeing, but now you seem to be okay. Hi, Ray.
Okay. So now it's freezing a lot. That's awesome.
Yeah, like you keep going.
But anyway, being.
Yep, we might have lost Chad. Can you guys let me know if we're freezing up on you or if it's just on our end that we're seeing it?
I think I'm frozen.
Yeah, hold on a second, buddy. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Waiting to see if it's just what I'm seeing, if we're actually freezing.
Should we just end, maybe?
Hold on. Yeah, hold on. We'll get it figured out.
It's the universe telling us that we've talked too long.
Maybe. He's frozen. He is freezing, but you are fine. So I must be okay. Chad, okay, talk for a second. Let me see if.
Yeah, I am talking.
Yeah, you're back and forth. Let me try to give your feed a half second here. So, Ray said yes, he was in the middle of genius info too. So hold on a second, Chad. I want to make sure we get this out that because it sounds like maybe I'm still coming through. So, next week's chat, social emotional learning is the topic, and Todd Finley is going to be leading us. I want to make sure you guys see that we have that going on. I'm going to try and see if we can get Chad fed back in here since he was going on a tangent that I thought was really awesome too. So, but next week we'll be here again, 8 o'clock Central. I think I'm freezing up a little bit too now, so maybe we do need to go. So I apologize for that, guys. Hopefully you're getting some of this. Jeff, you sound very clear and great, so that's awesome. I wonder if that's Ray or cool. That's Dan tweeted for. So anyway, I want to make sure you guys know next week we'll be here again. Next week's topic is a huge one. Ray says she loves it. It is a really cool one. Social emotional learning. We've got Todd Finley going in, and Kristen said Todd is amazing. So apparently Todd is also amazing. We agree. We think Todd's awesome. We're really excited to have him on. 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, as always, over on Twitter. We'll go live here on Facebook beforehand and after as well, like we always do. So, Chad, I think, are you still frozen? Yeah, Chad's still frozen, so I'm going to go ahead and go, but you guys are awesome. Thanks for chiming in. Everyone who participated in the chat, you guys are all amazing. And those of you who chimed in here and provided your comments here, we love it. Let's keep the conversation going. You can always still use the hashtag Mastery Chat over on Twitter to keep the conversation going. Or keep commenting here on this video. We can still talk. We'll get Chad in the comments as well. So let's see. So this is a topic we have been paving the way for. Must take it out from under the carpet. Can't wait. Big push in our district from Angela. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that next week's topic is a really relevant one for a lot of people trying to make moves that way. So super excited. Thanks for watching again, guys. I did lose Chaz altogether, so I'm going to go try and find him. But thanks for watching. Thanks for being in the chat. Thanks for being awesome. Thanks for all the things you do every single day in your classrooms, in your schools, in your districts, and in this community. So we appreciate everything you guys do and all the support and everything. So we'll see you next week.